Hello, Olaf. Can you hear me? Now we couldn't see you, but now we can. How are you? Yeah, não tem som. We're missing your sound. Just 1 minute. Can you say something now? Or are you muted by any chance?
Yes, that was the problem. Hello.
I'm glad we have all these nice buttons that we can put on and off all the time.
It sounds a bit confusing.
Good, good. So I think we're approaching our time. I would like to start on time. Are everything okay with you? Are we all ready?
Yes, sure.
Yes? Okay. What time is it? Okay, now it's time. So I would like to know if we are online already. Just waiting for the signal. Já estamos online? Nearly there? Huh? Okay, I think we are online and live again on the third week of the Arqus Hour. So welcome everyone in the room. Welcome everyone that are online watching us on real time, or maybe later, asynchronously. It's a pleasure to have you. So today we are in the third session of what we have called the Arqus Hour. The Arqus Hour is an initiative that we set out with the goal of having everyone in the University of Minho and other partners, and welcome to our colleagues of the Alliance if there's someone out there listening to us, so we can actually learn from those who were the leaders of the first 4 years in the Alliance, what has been done. If you enter and you find such an interesting but also such a challenging project, you wonder what has been done, how it has been done, what are the issues, what are future goals maybe. So, and this is what this initiative is all about. We thought that we would be very well if we would have 1 hour every week in which we would invite the leaders of what the Alliance calls the action lines. Summarizing, it's the topics that the Alliance has put forward as major goals, broad topics with broad goals, and we would have the coordinators sharing with us the experience of being in the Alliance, developing the Alliance, and what has been done since 2018 when the Alliance actually started. And with that spirit, we have had the first introductory session with the coordinators of the Alliance. We have had last week another session that was focused on inclusion, on entrepreneurship, and our topic for today is the multilingual and the multicultural university. So it looks like we live in a world that everybody understands and speaks English, but that is really not the only language that exists. And we are striving is that for universities that actually get richer with the diversity of languages and cultures. So with that introduction, I will now welcome our special guest for today, Professor Olaf Bachenfanger, if I'm pronouncing you correct. Welcome, Olaf.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to give you a short bio of Olaf, and then I will also present our guests for today, Professor Jaime Costa here from the University of Minho, and they will be the ones leading the conversation after this general introduction. So getting back to our colleague from Leipzig, University of Leipzig, Professor Olaf Bachenfanger is the director of the Language Center at Leipzig University. The Language Center offers a wide range of courses in many modern foreign languages, as well as ancient languages such as Latin, and has almost 4,000 students every year. Olaf Bachenfanger, he studied German philology and philosophy at the Heidelberg University and the University of Paris, Sorbonne. He received his PhD from Bielefeld University with a thesis on research methodologies, and University of Leipzig in 2016 awarded him the Vinia Legendi for German as a foreign and second language. He's frequent instructor in staff training, and within the Alliance, staff training is a very important dimension. So welcome if you're a professional staff in any of our universities, special welcome to you. Olaf is also Vice President and co-founder of the Institute for Test Research and Test Development, and member of the academic boards of the Federal Ministry of the Interior, of the Federal Ministry for Labor and Social Affairs, of the German Academic Exchange Service, and of the Goethe Institute. So, Olaf, I hope I have mentioned everything that it's important in your CV. I'm sure I forgot many things, but at least it's a few important details. And I'm now in a minute pass the words to you, and then I will introduce Jaime when you finish your conversation, and then he will continue the session. But before I do that, I would just like to guarantee if you have any questions, if you are in the room or if you are online watching us on YouTube, and if you have any questions, please do advance the questions. We would like to hear from you. This is a session intended to clarify all that are interested in Arqus to learn from Arqus. So we welcome very much your questions. So, Olaf, without further ado, the stage is yours. Thank you again for being with us.
Yeah, thank you, Manuel. It's a great pleasure to be with you again. I have to say, I think it's 15 years that I have been once in Braga at the University of Minho, and I enjoyed it very much to stay in your lovely guest house. But I'm here today to talk a little about the Arqus Action Line 4, and I'm now sharing the slides. My plan was to give you a short overview of the aims and the overall structure of the action line, and then to go a little bit more into detail as far as some specific work packages are concerned. So why are we here? What are we doing? Action Line 4 has a specific mission. The mission is to educate European citizens for a globalized world. So we are essentially dealing with international competence. We want to make students fit for study abroad, or also students to become incoming students at our universities. But we also want them to be part in international teams or also be able to work abroad. Finally, we also want them to be able to participate in global communities or in global discourse. This idea of educating global citizens is also reflected in one of the aims of the initial proposal. The Alliance aspires to ensure truly multilingual environments at partner universities, using its language diversity to promote multilingualism throughout the university's activities. So it's way more than just English. And the Alliance aspires to move beyond language competence in order to also promote intercultural communication competence amongst students and staff. So it's not only about language, it's also about culture, or more precisely, cultures. This overall aim breaks down into 9 work packages. The first 2 of them relate to language policy, and then 6 others relate to concrete measures to educate either students or staff. And then we have finally an online terminological database for terms in higher education, which is intended to provide a common language for the partner universities as far as these terms, as far as higher education is concerned. I'm now turning to our first work package, the Charter on Language Policy. language policy in higher education is essentially about the role of language in teaching, in learning, and all the things that are around educational activities. What we did is we collected a lot of information on individual language policies that have already been around at the partner universities. And we are currently assembling all these information into a joint policy document. And we are hoping to be ready with this by September, when we will provide a final review and publish it. Related to this work package is the second work package, a Symposium on Language Policy, which was held in November 2020 at the University of Vilnius. Unfortunately, we could only do it virtually, but we had 7 plenary sessions and 80 panel sessions, a lot of interactive discussions. We had language cafes, and we tried to crystallize our discussions in a book, and this one will be published in autumn as well. Here you have a link where you can find additional information. So these are the 2 activities related to language policy, and I'm now turning to the 6 activities related to education. The first of these work packages is about staff development. We all believe that the staff at the partner universities still needs more international competence. And in order to help them acquire more competence, we started with a needs analysis. We did a large survey in which we asked them, what language needs do you have, and what kind of courses would really be helpful to you. We then did a second big language survey in which we tried to gather information on the language courses at all the partner universities. And more importantly, we wanted to find out which of these courses are open to the other Arqus partners, both to students and to staff. And we have at least 391 language courses that can be taken by any Arqus member. And we have another 138 intercultural courses of this type. So we have kind of a wealth of language courses, and now one of the most important tasks also for Arqus 2.0 is to make these courses more accessible to a larger audience. Another idea in this strand was to make language and culture competence visible. And how do you do this? You usually issue certificates about language competence or culture competence. Here we came up with a memorandum of understanding, which allows the mutual recognition of language and culture competences. This document was signed by the rectors at the annual conference in Padua, so it's quite new. And I'm really very happy that we have accomplished this important task, which will hopefully make our life easier when it comes to recognize language and culture competence, not only in terms of students, but also in terms of what staff has in competence-wise. The fifth domain is workshops in language and cross-cultural competence. Of course, the courses and workshops we have devised relate to the needs analysis I just have mentioned. We are very proud that we have reached more than 500 participants and in these 2 years. On the left-hand side, you find some of the titles. Of course, there have been a lot of more workshops than are here on the slide, like digital storytelling, good practice in language testing and assessment, European multilingualism, integrating virtual exchange to the university classroom, or intercultural communication skills. And if you see it as for the proportions of participants, I'm very glad to mention that already the University of Minho and our second new partner, the University of Wrocław, have participated in our staff workshops. So this is very eager of the new members. Of course, we also have a number of language courses and workshops for students. This is work package 4.6. Here the idea is to create shared courses where it doesn't matter where you're enrolled. You should be able to take a language course where it is offered. For instance, a Leipzig student should be able to take a course in Minho or in Vilnius. The courses we've had, again, it's only a short selection of the many courses we have offered so far. We have had courses on academic writing and presentation skills. We have had a German beginner course, not really beginner, it's an intermediate course. We have had a lot of language cafes where students can meet students from partner universities in a virtual environment where they can chat on topics that are interesting to them. There's only a moderator who facilitates a little bit, but essentially it's very open. And it's also very popular at the same time. And we also think of it in terms of micromobilities, because you can get in touch with fellow students from the partners and learn a little bit more about studying and living in the other country. We've also had a workshop on writing up the results and methods in research thesis, and we've had a number of summer schools. And again, we have very substantial numbers. We've had almost 1,000 participants in this work packages. Again, some of them from Minho and Wrocław. Unlike the staff trainings, the proportions of participants are a little bit more uneven. We have many from Graz and a little bit less from the other partners. Here are the summer schools. Not all universities have participated in this work package. We have had summer schools in 2020 and 2021. For obvious reasons, this was only feasible as online summer schools, but at least we could do something also in this respect. And again, we've had substantial numbers, and we are currently running the final round of Arqus 1.0 with 4 summer schools again, and possibly a little bit more than 100 participants. I have mentioned the Arqus cafes before. We've had 4 editions. One edition relates to a semester. We were able to offer these Arqus cafes in 14 languages. And as you can see immediately, these are more languages than we have partners. So we were also including languages like Chinese or Arabic, and by that means offering opportunities for linguistic exchange and practice for a larger audience than the languages that are spoken in our partner universities. And we've had 670 sessions, which is quite a substantial number. Altogether, we have reached more than 1,500 participants. And of course, these are sheer numbers, but I have also some qualitative feedback of our participants, just to give you an idea. One participant from an English medium of instruction workshop said, I really enjoyed all the series of academic seminars. They were all very helpful and I will surely use the lessons in my academic life. The professor was very clear, cheerful, and managed to engage students to participate. Amazing. Thank you for the opportunity. Participate in a German course. The course organizers were very helpful, friendly, and made exercises that were entertaining to complete. Participant from the Arqus Cafe said, I would recommend the Arqus Cafe to other students because I think it is one of the best ways to improve the hardest part of a language, speaking. And then another Arqus Lounge participant said, there's no better way of learning a language than community with fellow colleagues. I hope that I made you a little bit curious, and maybe you will also be willing to participate in one of the upcoming Arqus Cafe sessions. I'm now turning to work package 4.8. That's the second last point. Originally, we had planned to send language assistants from our universities to the other university where they teach either the language or where they give culture courses. And due to the pandemic, this was not possible, of course. And so we had to find something different. What we did is we developed a series of public lectures, which should be open to a larger audience, should also be of more general interest. On the left-hand side, you find again some of the titles like Exploring Students' Multilingualism, Language Students in Work and Practice, a course, Why Do Lithuanians Never Ring a Bicycle Bell, Cultural Learning in the Foreign Language Classroom, Harnessing Students' Multilingualism in English Medium Classes through Wikipedia editing, and so on and so on. So it's really a very broad spectrum of topics, and I think it really helped us to get to know each other, to also make the partners familiar with local traditions of teaching, also topics that are considered important at our local universities. So it's really a kind of beginning of a joint discourse. In numbers, we have had considerable clicks again, views again, more than 2,900 views in those 12 online lectures, which is also quite good, given that it was only online and we didn't have the opportunity to meet in person. Now I'm coming to my last point, and then I'm very interested to hear about your ideas and also your questions. The online terminological database for terms in higher education. I had already mentioned that the aim here is to find a common language, specifically for terms that are relevant for our daily work in higher education. And so the idea was to identify relevant concepts and then find translations for the partner languages. That's what has been going on, not only the last 2.5 years. The University of Granada had started way earlier, but at the end of September, this term base will be completed and accessible to a larger audience. So this was my little tour de force through action line for the multilingual and multicultural universities. And I hope that you have gotten some ideas of what we do, what we have done, and how we tried to accomplish our goals, even despite the sometimes difficult situation during the pandemic. Muito obrigado pela sua atenção. Obrigado.
De nada. It was a pleasure. Thank you sincerely, Olaf. It was a very comprehensive presentation. And within such a broad alliance, there's so many opportunities, of course, to develop ourselves into inter-university campuses, but also in this multicultural university that we wish we could have. So I'm sure there's loads of the opportunities that we will have together. And of course, I know there are a number of questions were circulating that I'm sure Jaime, now who I will introduce at this moment, will then have the pleasure to put to you. So I'm now going to introduce my dear colleague, Professor Jaime Costa. He is a dear colleague from one of our 12 units, 12 schools or institutes, if you want to put it like that. The schools that we translate literally as letters, arts, and human sciences. This is I know this is
Arts
not the best.
Humanities.
Arts and humanities. Thank you. And he's from the Department of English and North American Studies. He's vice president in that school, and he's also the director of our language center that calls itself by the name Babelium. He is part of the Center for Humanistic Studies at University of Minho, and as a member of this center, he's researcher at the Center for Transcultural Studies. And without further ado, Jaime, I'm going to leave you lead the rest of the conversation.
Okay.
Thank you for being with us.
It is a pleasure with you sharing this unique opportunity, actually, of getting to know each other, basically. And I'm surrounded by colleagues from my school, Arts and Humanities, and also by other schools, international relations, education. And we have quite a lot of questions, and we are very curious, mostly with practical issues, trying to see how do we get to participate within Arqus, because it is something that has existed before we joined. And we really need to get some information of how things operate between ourselves in the future. So talking about the next academic year, how should we approach, or even now, regarding summer courses, how can we approach the rest of the universities? That would be the very first question. You see, and something which actually is very meaningful for us would be the mutual recognition of, courses taken, because I assume that our relationship will be closer than that of, any other existing partnerships right now. So actually, if our students, staff, and teaching and non-teaching staff are willing to participate, how should we recognize each other, in the sense of, not just a course, a full semester, but, a little course if you want, a little session that takes place. How can we get to recognize these things within, our different academic systems? Mostly, officially, how we get, the approval from our ministries of education? Do we have to conform to any requirements already set?
Mm-hmm. I think we all have very different formats as far as language and culture courses are concerned. For instance, here at the University of Leipzig, we only have 10 credit courses. So these are really huge courses. I know many other language centers have quite different formats. I like the idea of micro certificates. That means issuing certificates for smaller achievements and then collect them under the roof of a larger module, which can be used by all the partners. For instance, if Granada has 5 credit modules, or Minho 3 credit modules, or other universities 8 credit modules, we should try to find a mechanism which allows us to fit in these smaller units into a larger module. one of my ideas for our future collaboration would be to define such a module under the roof of multilingualism, in which we can just, could be just something like a container module, which makes it possible to make recognition easier. As far as getting going is concerned, in Action Line 4, we have bi-monthly board meetings. And of course, we would be more than happy to have you on board there. You can attend all the discussions. And we have also decided to appoint 2 lead partners for each of the work packages. So if you have one specific question, you can easily address the lead partner. So this should make it easier. It's also, I think it's really important that we meet at some time in person. We couldn't do this, or we hardly could do this the second 2.5 years. But I really would be more than happy to have a huge board meeting in the fall, where we continue our joint work on issues of multilingualism and multiculturalism.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like, maybe my colleagues would like to post some questions regarding the issues concerning this meeting. I don't know if do you have any questions? You know, as a director of the, you know, I take the opportunity now as director of the Language Center. You know, we are about to start our summer courses. I would like to know about the possibility now of publicizing our courses, bilingual courses, to the rest of the schools. How should I approach the other universities, the other language centers of the other universities? Mm-hmm. Should we, you know, is there any sort of communication center or secretariat for these sort of courses?
Essentially, there are 2 ways. As far as language and culture summer schools are concerned, we have this part this is one individual work package in Action Line 4. So please just let me or one of the 2 coordinators, Kerstin and Alba, know, and we can distribute this information among the board members of Action Line 4, who are always in languages in different respects. The second thing is you can address our lovely colleagues in Granada from the communication team. They also have the opportunity to distribute this information widely.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, this question.
Hello. Okay. So I will. Okay, it seems that it is working. I'm from the School of Engineering. My name is Rui Lima. And I also am interested in the way things were working during these 2 or 3 or 4 years that you have been working on it, because it was impressive, the number of outputs that you have shown here. Could you tell us a little bit about how did you organize the work on the action line and how work packages were organized? Well, listening something from you will be helpful for us on this.
Mm-hmm. Usually working at the university means self-exploitation. So, a lot of the things we do in Action Line 4 is just what we are doing on top of our daily work, and we do it because we think it's really worthwhile and we think it's important. here in Action Line 4, we have 50% position for a coordinator. I know that some of the partners also have part-time contractors which take over the local work. And I think it's really important to have one person who is in charge of collecting information, distributing information, being the person who can be addressed from the other partners. I think it's also in Action Line 4, it was very important to make Arqus known to the university audience at large. And I'm really happy to see that you have done a lot in this direction so far. But to my experience, it took some time to make Arqus known amongst the students, amongst the staff, and also to convince the colleagues to participate and engage. But I think everyone who sees the added value of international cooperation will hopefully be willing to contribute.
Hello a lot. My name is Magda. I work in the unit of the accreditation and cataloging courses. And I have a question. All these courses are free?
Yeah, the idea is that you give something and you receive something back. Of course, many of the universities have their own programs for money and like commercial summer schools or commercial language classes, and I think these courses shouldn't be affected. But my idea of this European collaboration is that, for instance, we offer open spaces in our language courses. For instance, here in Leipzig, we have very few participants in Brazilian Portuguese. We have very little participants in Bulgarian or in Serbian. And I think it makes perfect sense to make these open enrollments accessible to our partners. And I think that there won't be hundreds, but maybe there are 2 or 3 at Minho or Vilnius or Graz. And yeah, it's in this direction a win-win situation. And I think we all have things to offer. And first step would be to make this visible, to know what is what can be given, and then create a plan how participation can be implemented. In the last round, I know it has been a little bit difficult because my own university doesn't allow other students to enroll in our courses if they're not regular students of Leipzig University or guest students, but they can't be neither regular students nor can they be guest students. So there are still some legal issues we have to resolve, but I think this is one of the pressing issues for the Rectors' Council in the next funding period. Sorry, I can hardly hear you.
Is it? Oh, sure.
Okay, I'll switch mic. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect.
Yes. Okay. So hello, nice to meet you. My name is Anna. My question is related to something that you mentioned some minutes ago. That I believe that is one of our challenges as well. that is presenting and promoting Arqus in the inside the university. So let Arqus be known by the academic community, teachers, schools, students, and so on. You showed us many outputs, many events and activities that you organized under these action lines, and many of them were online because of the pandemic, obviously. Now that we are moving forward to a more face-to-face reality again, do you think that you will have an impact in terms of activity? And how are you organizing the following activities, or are you continuing with the online offer at the same time as you are moving to physical events or course? Thank you.
I think that's an excellent question. And we're discussing this question not only in the Alliance, but also in the universities and our departments. Personally, I think we should make an intelligent mix of the formats we have. Especially if we think of international mobility, we don't only have to think of traveling to another country. We can also have these micro mobilities, virtual micro mobilities, where we share classes for 1 or 2 sessions, where we give guest lectures. Just think of a lecture on international or European law. I think it would make perfect sense to have one original lecture here in Leipzig, and then invite guest speakers from 5 partner universities. And I think this is the European idea behind Arqus, is to have a common European space of education, where it should not matter where you are in order to learn or to teach. And that can be done quite easily if we make use of digital technology. But at the same time, it's also important that we have face-to-face experience, that we smell the air of the Atlantic Ocean, or taste the wonderful dishes of the guest country, make friends and sing fado or whatever. So I think we need a mix. And for me, we should now try, it's a perfect moment to think about what was good, what are the things we want to continue, and where do we want to spend the money? Because of course, physical mobility costs a lot of money, and we've had these virtual summer schools, which cost nothing to the students. We only paid the instructors, but otherwise we would have spent 25,000–30,000 euros for one cohort traveling from Granada to Leipzig and vice versa. So my answer is it depends.
So I'll take my turn now. So it's actually on following up a little bit on what you said. You mentioned now the students, and I would like to introduce the questions about the students. So what was good about the students? What was good for the students? What do you think made a difference for the students in every partner's university that they were part of Arqus? That would be question number 1, okay? If I can add a question number 2, just to shift a little bit out of the linguistics and out of the language to the cultural. So we have here, for example, vice presidents from the School of Arts and Humanities, from music, for example. So I was wondering, what other dimensions of the cultural dimensions have you been able to approach during this 3 years, 4 years period? And again, what are potential follow-ups? What are potential new explorations in terms of, you know, the cultural world, if you want to put it like that, in this new application that we've put up together for Arqus 2, if you want to put it like that. So the questions are about students and then about other cultural dimensions.
Mm-hmm. What's the benefit for the students? I think on the first hand, they can shape the university of the future. We have the student council, and we have, of course, members from all the partner universities, and they discuss about the role of teaching and learning at the universities, and especially in Arqus. They also make suggestions. In Padua, they had their own forum where they discussed things like climate change and so on, pressing issues which are relevant to all of us. And yeah, I think that's really one really powerful means to participate and to shape the future university. As far as languages are concerned, one of the overarching, or one of the major goals of Arqus is within the framework of Erasmus+, that we reach at least 50% of the students with any kind of Arqus activity. These can be physical mobilities, but also virtual mobilities, for instance, language cafes. It's a very good means to get in touch with students and also professors from the partner universities to learn about the other countries, to learn about what it means to study there, how it feels to study there, to acquire this international competence I had mentioned at the beginning of my presentation. So it's really, I think, a wonderful opportunity for the students. As far as other topics as languages are concerned, I think there are a lot of activities going on too. I know that here in Leipzig we are planning a European that there is a master program in European studies, and of course all the partners, or at least many of the partners, will feed their input into this joint master's program. There are still discussions about a joint master in translation. We have many activities like lectures or Arqus discussions about pressing societal, environmental issues like climate change, the rise of authoritarian regimes, gender issues, these kind of things. But of course, it's, as I said, taking and giving. And I think all the partners are very curious to see what MIO has to offer and what you think is important as topics and where you're engaged in scientifically, academically. I think it's really, I like thinking of Arqus as this European space of education where we can have discourse which would not be possible when we stayed only in our regional or national contexts. And so it's really important to see what's being discussed and what each of the partners has to offer. For instance, a colleague from the Department of Engineering, I'm very sorry to say at Leipzig University, we don't have a Department of Engineering. I know Granada has, but at the same time, it's also fascinating to see what you think about in this European context. And yeah, just see what we have and give what you have.
So there are no roads closed, so you can add more ideas and more areas to what will be done in the future.
Absolutely.
if, do we have any more questions from the audience?
Alima. It will probably be the last one, okay, Olaf? So we stick to the hour.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing and for generosity in sharing all this information with us, Olaf. Now, cross-cultural competence is also being called intercultural intelligence. Yes, and this is something that it's extremely important for our students in a transversal way. I would like to ask you, if I understood correctly, all the activities so far, they are a compilation of what each member has to offer to the whole Arqus community. But have you planned for the future, or if something already has already happened, some joint venture, a co-designed activity, a jointly developed summer school, for example, or some cross-cultural language, cross-cultural course or workshop that would leave room for our teaching staff to collaborate as well and to jointly design and jointly develop this initiative.
I think it's mostly true what you say. Arqus 1.0 lives from the participations or the contributions of the individual partners. Now it's, but we also needed the time to learn about what has been around and how these very, very different offerings, different structures can fit into these very diverse educational systems. And this still needs a lot of discussion and also probably negotiation. One thing, I'm very proud that we have this joint certification model. It's also planned to use blockchain technology to implement it by means of up-to-date technology. But for the future, it would also make sense to have truly shared modules. And one strand could be this module on multilingualism, where we allow for recognizing and integrating very diverse achievements in multilingualism, either formal education or informal education, au pairships, and so on. But of course, if you have any other ideas, we're very open to these ideas, and the more you contribute, the more Arqus will strive for the future and blossom.
Well, I think we still have some minutes for the last question I would like to address to you. You know, you mentioned the idea of the European campus different times during your presentation. But my question would be something that probably all of us are wondering right now. You know, what are the differences? Because we are partners within Erasmus. And what is the main difference you could think about with this sort of very close partnership within 10 universities? What's the difference? You know, because I see that there are certain things that need to be worked out. You mentioned about certification, mutual recognition, and I think that's one of the most important issues. You know, whether it is micro mobility or just a full semester, you know, we should make sure that we are on the same page as far as recognition. And I don't mean just recognition between universities, but actually we have to take into account the ministries of education or higher education. How should we work out? Because these things are difficult. We have we have 2 MA degrees now, international MA degrees at the School of Arts and Humanities. And we find that, for instance, our Ministry of Education is very strict in terms of, you know, recognition of foreign, degrees and so on. So I would like to know how we can operate and work things out in this way, because we need to sell a product to our students and our community, and recognition is the most important issue.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the crucial point. The major difference is probably these very heterogeneous legal systems, the legal constraints under which we work. Here in Germany, we're not completely liberal, but I know it from Spain that the regional Ministry of Education of Andalusia is very much concerned with details and recognition, and takes a long time to recognize things. Even if you want to distribute a questionnaire, local boards have to be bothered, and so on. So I think in the first step, it's important to understand a little bit better the constraints and terms and conditions under which we work. And then in the second step, we need to be creative and find means. My personal view is that on the European level, we really need to be very creative and be flexible also at the same time to make things that we devised at the European level is working locally. I think there is not just one single rationale that is always working. It's probably usually a little bit of bricolage, as the French say. It's detailed work, which takes a lot of evenings and nights. And if all the participants wanted to work, it will work. That's also the interesting thing of it in it.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate very much your presentation today, and probably in the future we will contact you. I'm very sure that we'll have more questions as we start thinking about new projects and new ideas to share with the Alliance. I would like maybe to finish, thanking you and Professor Manuel João for having us in this for this session. And as I said, communication is very important. So probably we'll get in touch with you once again.
Mm-hmm.
So I will wrap up very quickly, and first and foremost, thanking you, Olaf, for all your time, all your clarity, and all your vision. And I won't thank you for all the nights, but I'm sure there are some, and I'm sure what you did will be good for us as well, because we're in this together. We have this very big challenge of accreditation, of legal systems, but we used to have one coin per country, and then all of a sudden people got together when we're able to merge the financial system into one coin. So I think we now have an opportunity. The more we connect, the more we communicate, to actually forge some really interesting ways of finding common places and finding in common processes of certification and others. And I think that's what we're here for. And so again, thank you very, very much, Olaf. It was a huge pleasure to have you with us virtually. I'll see you in person tomorrow in France, I think, because we'll have a meeting tomorrow in Lyon. And I want to thank Jaime Costa, our colleague, for moderating this session. Everyone who was here. We have vice presidents from schools, we have staff from offices, we have a student at least. He's a student. I know he's a student because he dresses like one. There might be others. And so it's what we want. We want to have every sector, if you allow me this word, of the university coming together to think about how we can do this better. And I think we're just on our way to do it. So for those who are listening to us and seeing us, please be back next week. We'll have another Arqus hour on this time on Wednesday at 2:30 Portuguese time, 3:30 Central European time, and we'll be talking about student-centered ways of teaching and the European citizenship within Arqus. And this will be our 2 topics for next week. Thank you for being with us. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Obrigado. Já não me ouve. Obrigado.
Obrigado também.